Good afternoon, Whale Coin Talk community. My name is Noah. I'm here today with the third Twitter space of Monday afternoon. Wow, it's already passed that quickly. So we have the Enclave Markets team in the house. I'm really excited about this one. Not a project, or rather, not a tech that I'm very familiar with. And so, from what I've read and understood so far, it's quite exciting. It's quite innovative. But before we get started, let's introduce Drew, Alta, Phil. Welcome to the panel. Before we get started, would love to get a quick background of your origin stories, your career trajectories, and how you ultimately made that leap into Web3.
Sure. I guess I should start first. Noah, thanks so much for having us here for this Twitter Spaces. Very excited to talk a little bit more about our exchange and our model. My name is Olta Induni. I'm General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer of Enclave Markets. I've been an attorney in private practice since 1998, and then I'm one of those vet attorneys in the cryptocurrency and blockchain industry. I was from a practicing law firm. I was chief legal officer of Nifty's, and then I joined Avalabs as deputy GC. I think Enclave Markets is sort of a spin-off of Avalabs, so very happy to kind of guide the whole legal and compliance perspective for Enclave right now.
Cool. I can go next too. I'll follow Alta. Phil Wirch is here. I'm our head of strategy at Enclave. Have been with the company since day one. Like Alta said, we were sort of incubated out of Ava Labs. And so I go back a ways with the Ava Labs team. I've been involved in the ecosystem for some time, for crypto for some time longer. And before that, sort of have this history of early stage tech companies and joining to help the companies get off the ground, early stage employee, put some rails around the actual business and grow from there. So looking forward to doing the same thing with Enclave. And Noah, thanks for having us on today to share a little bit more about the company.
And hey, folks, happy to finish off on the Enclave side. I'm Drew. I run product marketing at Enclave and focus very much on go-to-market efforts. Prior to Enclave, I was at Twitter for a while, working on a lot of product strategy, understanding the impact of ads, our advertisers driving ROI, and then shifted into crypto a couple years ago over at Kraken, where I joined the product marketing team, and then recently shifted over to Enclave. And like I said, running go-to-market efforts, so really love engaging with the community, understanding the voice of the clients, and really figuring out what the market wants, and then bringing that back into our product org. So love working with y'all and hearing the feedback.
Fantastic, quite the resumes. And guys, we worked offline on some questions. You guys came up with an agenda. I came up with some high-level questions on Enclave. I wanted to start with those and then kind of lead into more of the kind of atmospheric questions as they pertain to centralized exchanges and how this fully encrypted exchange tech is going to be a paradigm shifter. So with that said, give us a high-level overview of what the Enclave market is, and also explain what a fully encrypted exchange affects is and its main components.
Yeah, so I can jump in here. This is Phil again. And maybe before I start, I'm certainly looking forward to the atmospheric questions as well, but happy to start with an overview of Enclave. I think to understand Enclave and sort of why we came to be, it's important to understand, or at least state, some of the problems that were plaguing crypto, and in many ways continue to do today. And those are things like front running, like data leakage in terms of people being able to see your trades or track your wallet on chain. And basically the problem of asymmetric information when it comes to trading crypto assets. So at Enclave, we said, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be a better way to build a platform that's more secure, more fair, more performant than what currently exists. And that's sort of the idea behind Enclave. So we are a technology that powers all of our trading platforms. And I can chat a little bit more about our products in a bit. And the core thesis behind Enclave Markets is to remove the single point of failure from running an exchange, and also to remove some of the extracurricular activities from other exchange or exchange-like behaviors in the past, meaning we don't run a trading desk, we don't rehypothecate funds, we simply provide a platform for users to trade. And the way that we sort of market ourselves, but it's also truly what we believe is sort of removing trust in people and putting it in code. And so we use the secure Enclave technology to sort of create the secure trading environment that powers some of those value props, and allows for trading of digital assets in a way that is more secure, fair, and performant. So our first product is called Enclave Cross. It's a crossing network for those familiar with the term, but basically it's a way to solve a mismatch between buyers and sellers who want to trade at size. And so basically you come in, you deposit your funds into the Enclave, where all trading and execution happens. You put your block trade on the Enclave, on the network, and it rests until the counterparty comes through and clears that trade. You can be fully filled, you can be partially filled, but your order will rest either until you get executed or you remove your trade from the system or from the platform. And there's also various features that we put around that trade, order types, order duration, things like that, so you can put some protections around your trade as well. But everything that we do is sort of geared towards facilitating trading in a more fair, secure, and performant way. And that's really what Enclave Markets is at the end of the day.
So when you say we put our funds into an Enclave, are we then losing custody of our funds? Are the funds being locked in some other proprietary smart contract? How does it work?
No, you're not actually. So the second big pillar, and it's a great question, of Enclave is our attester network. And so basically, when you put your funds into the Enclave, you are the only person. Again, the point of Enclave is to remove that single point of failure. So we as the exchange operator can't touch your funds, nor can any of the testers act in a unilateral manner to influence what's in the Enclave. So the only person who can go in and withdraw your funds is you, the user. And so we refer to that term as decentralized custody, and we can chat about that a little bit later in the conversation. But that sort of attester network helps provide security around the Enclave, and we can dig into the details, but it's security. They perform certain actions to make the system go, but the ability to draw funds in and out stays with the user at all times.
And sorry, go ahead, Alta.
No, I just want to add a little bit more to Phil's point, because each time that I would like to talk about Enclave, I think that this is sort of the silver lining after everything that happened after FTX. With our exchange, we're sort of leveraging all the lessons that we learned from this past cycle, and that's why we're very excited about our model. But to emphasize one key point of our architecture for Enclave is that we do rely on our attesters, and we do use 3 attesters now. And we can give more details about that, but these attesters run the independent nodes that verify the code base, and then they store the secret shares and process the transaction request. So I think that this is pretty much what the users and customers are using for decentralized exchanges or fully encrypted exchanges. And then the attesters, they decentralize the custody of clients' funds. So that's why I would like to emphasize this decentralized custody model.
Mm-hmm. And the advantages over a centralized exchange are clear, and we're going to go into those. Is the advantage over a decentralized exchange the fact that putting your funds into an Enclave allows you to trade bigger volumes with less slippage and at faster rates? I'm just speculating.
Orders need not to be public as they are in decentralized exchange, right? So pretty much a fully encrypted exchange addresses exactly how this trust cannot be misplaced. Like, because you have the attesters that guarantee this compliance, and the compliance is built within the platform. I know that the CEO of Ava Labs, he did have a great presentation, a great podcast about our exchange. And I think, to quote him, I think that this is one of those technologies that kind of puts us way ahead in compared to Wall Street, and what sort of Wall Street is expecting from us.
Got it. Okay, so what this allows the end user to do is to deposit their funds into an enclave, and they have control of their funds, and they can trade, they can do partial orders, they can trade as much as they want, but all their activity stays private. And so if let's say they enter the enclave with 1 Bitcoin, and I'm just using Bitcoin for the sake of the argument, and they exit the enclave with 10 Bitcoin, you can see that they entered and exited with 1 and 10 Bitcoin, but you can't see the actual trades that happen in order to reach from point A to point B.
That's correct.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to kind of break things down in layman's terms, or rather give it layman's example. Before we jump into the tester node model, be curious to know, I was reading that the technology, the architecture to make effects possible has been in the works for quite some time, I think even 10 years, and it's finally at a place where it's able to make the dream a reality. Can you briefly explain what secure enclave technology is, and what Intel software guard extension is as well?
Yeah, happy to jump in here, Noah. So Drew speaking. I think from a high level, when we think about what secure enclave technology is, and you mentioned we use an Intel software guard extension, so that's SGX. I'll throw some terms. We'll make it pretty layman's terms in a moment. Basically, modern chips have this software guard extension. And what it allows you to do is cordon off a section of your code base and do what we call a secure enclave. Some other terms for this can be a trusted execution environment. But what's really happening is you have a broad code base, and you cordon off a specific section that's separated from the entire host operating system. This is essentially creating like a black box. And so if you implement it properly, nobody, even including the owner of the box, is able to see what's happening inside. So you can insert some special code, your most critical confidential code into this black box, and nobody from the outside and nobody from the exchange operators can actually see what's happening within that black box. And so that's basically what you were describing when you said you deposit 1 Bitcoin, you come back with 10 Bitcoin. We don't see what's happening on those individual instances because it's happening within the secure enclave. What's super important about this type of black box is not only that it keeps everything confidential, but you're also able to verify the integrity of the secure enclave. And so that makes sure you can say, I am confident that nobody has changed any of the parameters. There are no backdoors. There's nobody surveilling what's happening. Because if anything had changed, that would actually show up in some of the cryptography that we use, and it wouldn't actually pass the attesters challenges. And we can get into the attester networks in a moment. But bringing this back to how Enclave really works, high level, we create a secure enclave that hosts our exchange code base. And what that means is we don't have any information leaking to us as the operators. And so this is really where the main differentiator happens, where other exchanges or systems can use leak information, leverage that information before it goes totally public. We have no access to that. We are essentially just like everybody else on the outside of the black box, and that's what really protects your alpha or your trades, and makes sure you can trade confidentially when you're using Enclave.
And what keeps these user funds, or rather these custody of funds, decentralized is that a tester node model that we've been talking about. Can you dive into that a bit? Like, who are the third-party testers? I think Olt has said there's currently 3. And also, what are the requirements? Like, give us the nuts and bolts breakdown of how this all works.
Yeah, that's a great question, Noah. So I can cover this. So so far, I mean, including ourselves as a tester, we are 4. So we use Republic Crypto, Blockdaemon, and Ava Labs, right? When it comes to the selection of these testers, they are or the selection criteria is based on companies that have experience with this sort of infrastructure and also running a node. So at this stage. We're still very a brand new startup, but we have received significant interest in joining the tester network, and we do anticipate increasing the number of our testers that secure the network to potentially 8 to 10 total testers at some point over the coming years. But for now, yes, we are pretty much like 4 testers.
And so if you're going to increase the number of testers in the coming years, like what exactly would be the requirements? Who qualifies? I know you said people that have had background or experience in the past, but I would love to know what the application process would be, or just how that whole process would work.
Yeah, Phil handles this, so I'll let Phil elaborate more.
Yeah, I can speak about it a little bit, and there's no checklist that you absolutely have to meet to the letter of the law, but there's core things that we look at. One of those things, like Alta mentioned, is deep experience running infrastructure. So Blockdaemon, for example, their whole business is based on running nodes, and to be in a tester, you need to be able to run a node for each blockchain that we Enclave connect with. So right now we're connected with Avalanche and Ethereum, and so a tester would need to run a node for both of those. As we expand as an exchange and connect with additional blockchains, testers will need to run an incremental node for each chain that we connect with. So being able to have that experience is number one. I think that the second part is being agile. And all of our partners are pretty agile right now, but there are times when we need to propose software to push that testers need to audit and then approve. And that could happen, ideally on a regular cadence, but that's not always the way that things go. So being able to, guarantee some uptime, respond to issues as they pop up, and then again, pushing the expertise to actually make sure that the code that's going into the trusted portion of the secure enclave is super, super important. So really, those are the big ones that we look for when we think about testers.
Mm-hmm. So guys, we've talked about what Effects is and kind of the high level architecture of it, right? How the enclaves remain secure and how the tester network plays a part in that. I'd be curious to know, because we've talked about how you guys are. I mean, this is helping to eliminate backdoors and front runners and maintain the integrity of the ecosystem. Would love to know how people can actually verify the integrity of the FEX code and what the steps are in doing that. Because I know I read that it was available to anyone.
Yeah, I think this is another great question, Noah. So first of all, I would love to know your definition of a backdoor, because that backdoor sort of definition includes or involves a lot of more. So what exactly do you mean by a backdoor here?
FTX and Alameda. I'll give you a real life example.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a perfect analogy. So just to emphasize for the listeners here, we cannot unilaterally control or create any backdoors on our exchange. So this is a very, very important feature of our exchange. So the code base runs on the decentralized tester nodes, right? So we cannot implement any sort of our own instance of the code base. The fact that this code base runs on the decentralized tester nodes attests again to the fact that we cannot unilaterally implement any changes to the code base. So instead, we need all testers to audit. We need them to review all the code base, and then once that is approved, all the testers will update their nodes in order to incorporate the new code base. So just to summarize, we cannot update code base without support from our testers. Is that a helpful answer?
It isn't. No, certainly is a helpful answer to me. I don't know if Phil had anything to add there.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit more to the actual attestation process. So I would fully agree and echo everything that Alta said. But then in terms of like the actual, like, how does remote attestation work, and like what does that mean? So right now in our current state, so we're in beta mode for our product right now. In beta mode, our attesters within the network are the ones who can remotely attest. As we move out of beta mode and mature as a company, we will have, or we'll look at ways where anybody, regardless of if they're an attester or running a node or not, can remotely attest to uh, the identity of the enclave. And so the way that attestation works is exactly that. You basically remotely dial in, the enclave proves its identity, proves that the source code hasn't been tampered with, proves that it's running on a genuine SGX enabled platform, and that the latest security updates or software updates of any type have been pushed to that code. And basically, if all of those things check, you have it remotely attested that, like, yep, that is the latest instance. It's a true instance of the enclave, and things are operating as it should within, that secure environment.
Beautifully put. And Phil, Drew, Ulta, before we start talking about, and I know that there's a lot more technical, there are a lot more technical answers that go into these things, but bringing it to the surface and explaining it in layman's terms is really important for everyone to be able to understand. Is there anything about the proprietary tech and the architecture that we haven't discussed that you guys want to touch upon before we start talking about changing markets, the atmosphere, also regulation? I have a lot of questions about that. Would love to pass the mic over to you first, though, and let me know if there's anything we missed.
Man, I don't know. Alta, Drew, what do you guys think? I think maybe the one thing that I would say is, as sort of a chain agnostic platform, trading platform, we sort of view ourselves as sitting as a hub between these chains that are doing a bunch of cool stuff in their ecosystem. But then this technology allows it to sort of act as a neutral environment. So any chain, as long as that we've integrated with them, can deposit their assets natively and trade on Enclave. And then maybe the only thing that I would say is the attesters, all hold one equal part of the master secret that ensures the truthfulness, if you will, of the secure Enclave. And we rely on an independent majority of those attesters to perform any action. So all of the stuff that we've talked about is in terms of the functionality of the attesters sort of have to come through an independent majority. It's like no one attester, and I think Alta mentioned this earlier and said it very well, no one attester, including Enclave Markets as the operator of the exchange, can act unilaterally. And I think that's a really important point to sort of take home here about Enclave.
Certainly is. I did miss one question, Bill. It would be, what happens in the instance of a successful hack or attack?
So let's say SGX has a history of vulnerabilities. I think like any piece of technology, there's always bugs. The SGX team or the Intel team does a really good job of communicating those in advance so that people who use that technology can react in time to protect their code base. And if it's helpful, I know there's other companies both in the crypto world and the non-crypto world who use Intel. I believe Fireblocks use it. I think Signal Messaging as well. And so there's a lot of use cases out there of managing bugs and reacting from them. In the case of a hack or a vulnerability that's exposed, the code base still stays safe. We host that in our cloud environment. Basically, we rely on the Enclave for privacy, but not for correctness. And so in the case of a hack or something like that happening directly to Intel SGX, the correctness of the code base, sort of the operations of the exchange, isn't necessarily influenced. It just sort of comes back and functions as a normal exchange would, meaning without the extra privacy and security and confidentiality that sort of makes Enclave who we are.
Okay, understood. It was essentially a centralized exchange. Am I correct in understanding that?
Yes,
Sorry,
Phil, correct.
Okay, cool. And so the Enclave Cross is currently available in its beta form. Is that available to anyone, or do you need to be whitelisted with your wallet?
You don't need to be whitelisted, and Alta can chat a little bit more about this or add more color after me, but you do need to be in approved jurisdictions. So there's certain states that we can't allow users from until we get the appropriate licenses. There's certain international jurisdictions that, and these are ones that are like on the sanction list or have taken some specific action against crypto that we have sort of restricted use from. Basically, the reason for this, and again, Alta can share more, is we take compliance seriously. I know it can sometimes be an extra step, but it's really important, especially if you want to be a global actor at scale, which are the goals, is the goal of Enclave Markets. So there's certain jurisdictions that you can't plug into, but other than that, you should be able to authenticate with your Web3 wallet of choice. Basically, go through the KYC process. Once you're approved as a good actor, you're welcome from anywhere to come on and trade on Enclave Markets.
No, you put that very accurately, Phil. So yes, we do have a KYC process for onboarding our users, and we are in every jurisdictions because we do have a strategy and expanding strategy for our Enclave markets. So for every jurisdiction, of course, I'm going to proceed with the needed licenses, and compliance is critical for our exchange, and that is why we have implemented the KYC process, but also we implement transaction monitoring as well.
Okay, so anyone that wants to use Enclave Cross needs to go through the KYC process. What is that process?
So the process is pretty basic. You have to have your identification. I mean, the documents that you need to onboard on majority of other exchanges as well. It's not burdensome.
Okay, got it. And so that would, if you were to KYC through Enclave, does that still, or do you guys still keep the person's wallet information private? Or does that attach the decentralized wallet to that person's identity?
No, we don't collect. So first of all, we don't hold PII as the KYC process at Enclave Markets in general. Our vendor holds the PII, so we can't access any individual user's PII. And then also, as part of the KYC process, you don't share your wallet address. Basically, think of it as like you sign a transaction. Once you're KYC, you're basically on a yes/no list, and then you share, you authenticate, and if you've gone through the KYC list, you'll show up as able to use the platform, but we don't store the wallet address either.
That is correct. And something that I'd like to emphasize now is that even for section purposes, the list of the countries that are blocked from us is updated on I mean, pretty much every 2 or 3 weeks, because you can see a lot of regulatory changes out there. So as I said, this is again to emphasize how much important compliance is for Enclave Markets.
Yeah, it's crystal clear. And I wanted to move on now. Well, actually, before we move on, Enclave Spot Market, when can we expect its release?
Our tag name is Protect Your, or our tagline for Enclave Markets is Protect Your Alpha, but we can go ahead and share a little bit here. We are aiming to release Enclave Spot within the next, let's say, 90 to 120 days. I can't give the exact date, but I would say to the listeners, you can expect some pretty cool news here coming sooner rather than later.
Okay, so let's talk about the paradigm shift that is currently underway, and it looks like FEXs might be leading the charge. But how do you guys see the role of centralized exchanges shifting, especially after what's happened over the last year and the lessons that were, or rather, what lessons do you think were learned? Some of them are quite obvious, but some of them might not be so obvious.
I think I should take this question, Noah. I mean, I think this is a big concern for the whole industry, because we have seen so many, much more, especially enforcement actions from our regulators. But I think I would like to emphasize, first of all, that when we talk about the blockchain technology that provides, of course, a secure and trustless system for trading cryptocurrencies, I think that this is definitely a major advantage that we have to take over centralized exchanges, right? But I think that we have sort of two challenges that are, or two or more, to be honest, that are facing decentralized exchanges, because I think when it comes to decentralized exchanges, the regulatory uncertainty, and I'm not going to cover, maybe Phil can talk more about the liquidity issue, but I think from a legal perspective, I think that decentralized exchanges are definitely facing a big regulatory uncertainty. Many countries, I mean, they have not even yet developed the clear regulation for decentralized exchanges, which I think definitely is going to make it difficult for them to operate legally. And then you have the centralized exchanges that have faced, and I think they're going to continue facing this regulatory pressure to delete certain cryptocurrencies. And I think that that's why we're here. I think that it's very important for us as an industry to make sure that we have some principles that we would like to deliver to our regulators. And I would like to emphasize, not only myself, but I'm sure many other attorneys in the space are not big fans of regulation by enforcement. And we have seen like different actions, this especially during this year, and of course in 2022, that everybody is hoping to get some more regulatory clarity versus, as I said, getting that clarity by enforcement actions.
And then Noah, I'm happy to kind of jump in from more of a theoretical shift of like how we see the exchange landscape shifting, particularly based on just the lessons we learned in the last cycle. Really, when you're working with Enclave, we're trying to solve like two questions, which is one, when you make a trade, is that trade fair? Are you getting a fair price? Is it executing fairly? Two, when you're depositing your funds, are they safe? Are you worried that the exchange is insolvent, or are you totally confident that the funds are safe and can't be moved? And so I think on the first question, which is like, when I make a trade, is it fair? You have total transparency when you're using something like a DEX. You can see all the transactions as they're occurring. But there's also a lot of front running and MEV that make it really difficult for a lot of folks to actually trade. You put in an order and you actually end up getting, you're at a disadvantage unless you are at the top of the top and understand how to protect yourself from MEV. And like, there's a full spectrum here where you are either, in a really tough spot, or you're using a DEX that has some MEV protection, or you can move down into something that's a little bit more opaque, like a centralized exchange. The difficulty there is that it's opaque for some, but not all. The exchange insiders are able to see what's happening. Insiders could theoretically leverage that information before the public and front run you. They could act on it before you're able to execute your trade. And so there's opacity for some, but not all. And then you have the FEX, and we operate in the secure enclave. And what that does is it means that nobody, whether you're a market participant or an exchange operator or anybody that wants to participate in the market, nobody has an advantage there. You don't need to know how to do MEV. You basically are operating on the same playing field as everybody else. And so that's where we say we really feel like we do a strong job making sure when you're trading on Enclave, it's entirely fair. Nobody has an advantage over you. Then you go to the second question, which is, are my funds safe? And when you work with the DEX, you're pretty confident. You have tons of decentralization, and there's no way that Uniswap is going to steal your funds, unless there's a crazy smart contract breach. But the code will enforce that nobody's able to abscond with your funds, and that's really great. If you look at a centralized exchange, we've seen some issues over the last year. We had some issues with that. I think everybody is that's fresh on everyone's mind. And then when you look at effects, what we try to do is we make sure that we are 100% solvent, because the exchange operators, we don't have control over your funds. We can't move them without control of the decentralized, without the decentralized to tester network agreeing. And so we are totally solvent in that capacity, and we couldn't run off with your funds even if we tried. And I think that's the thing we really want to emphasize, which is we don't want you guys to need to rely on Phil and Ulta and myself to be good actors. We want you to rely on the tech to enforce the rules fairly. And that's really the shift we're trying to make, which is away from people processes making fair markets and more through tech-driven security and tech-driven neutrality. And that's really where we're trying to make the shift into this next generation of exchange tech. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. I have some follow-up questions, and even I'm going to play devil's advocate here a bit as well. One, before I do that, Alta, you said that you believe that decentralized exchanges might be in a bit of trouble coming up here over the next few years, and you mentioned the SEC has chosen a path to regulate by enforcement. Or rather, you've cited the SEC as using the path to regulate by enforcement, and they've foregone rulemaking because we all know rulemaking takes a lot more effort and time, and it's easier to pick a case that you think is winnable and make an example out of them. Hopefully, the rest of the industry gets scared and gets in place. Do you think the SEC is going to potentially come after decentralized exchanges like Uniswap with the same regulating by enforcement point of departure?
That's a very loaded question, but that's a great question. I mean, I wish that I could have a clear answer, but I think that honestly, I mean, as I said, it's a great question, but it's very hard to answer. My concern as an attorney in the industry is that, let's put it this way, we only have the 2019 framework. That is the only way to sort of scale the investor protection, because you have all these legal practitioners that can use it in order to steer to kind of guide the builders in this space. So I think that is exactly where the regulators are concentrating right now. But at the same time, we are not going to help our industry here in the United States. I mean, you see so many projects are moving offshore. I think yesterday there was this great tweet about, I mean, not only the number of projects moving offshore, but also how the nodes and kind of dividing the nodes based on those jurisdictions. So I think this is a big impact for all of us. I mean, not only for Enclave per se, but for the exchanges, for all of the protocols that are trying to deliver some use cases. So, and we have seen this enforcement by this regulation by enforcement since I think probably May of 2022. But now we see a little bit more sort of impact on it, because you can see that Securities and Exchange Commission recently, they also announced that they have they're kind of beefing up on their regulatory and enforcement division. My point is that I hope that we work closely. We're a very big proponent of this. We also, as part of Avalabs, we have Al Explains. We have built this platform to educate the regulators. We have built this platform to deliver a little bit more knowledge about Web3 and how many other companies are also building these use cases. So I'm not trying to summarize everything in just one initiative. My point is that honestly, I think, Noah, there is a lot of more education that is needed in our space.
Well, I certainly agree with you on that last point. Education is a critical catalyst to mass adoption, and people need to be able to understand this stuff before they hop in. But so is regulation, and you guys are trying to move that needle as well. I can see the product market fit for effects. I can, but I want to play devil's advocate here for just a moment, and let's look at centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges. Decentralized exchanges are great because you can just hop on to, I believe Phil or Drew was saying, is you hop on and you pick your token pair, you swap, everything stays in your wallet. The likelihood of getting hacked is very low, unless something crazy happens. Now, centralized exchanges, we've talked about the downsides, and we've seen the downsides as well. The proof is in the pudding over the last year. However, they are very easy for the average person, right? The layman, the crypto newbie to onboard and buy some Bitcoin or buy some Ethereum and kind of dip their feet into the market. I feel like most Americans either got in through Coinbase, or hopefully not, but probably FTX or even Binance.us. But with the FEX, I feel like you guys are in this middle ground where decentralization maxis will be turned off just by the fact that they need to enter their personal information in, and centralized exchange users will probably not be tech savvy enough, or at least crypto savvy enough, to make their own wallet and connect and onboard. And so I know that's kind of a long-winded preface to my question, but I thought it was important to make that distinction. But what are you guys doing to make that front end more accessible to the average user, where they don't even feel like they're interfacing with Web3? What are you guys doing to make the FEX feel like the centralized exchange experience that so many crypto newbies have had with Coinbase or with Binance or with Kraken, for example?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't know if I would disagree with any point that you made. So it truly is sort of an interesting point in the market right now. What I will say is every single day, just in terms of like, what are you doing to make the experience easier for your users to log into Enclave markets and trade? So every single day, our team focuses on that user journey. We have, a number of, if I had to like show it, it would take up the rest of the time here, but a number of different Figma boards, a number of different linear journeys of that exact user experience of like, how do we make it as intuitive as possible for somebody to come in and basically trade on Enclave just like they would be comfortable sort of entering crypto via Coinbase, via Kraken, via any other centralized exchange that you could think of. And so from a step-by-step perspective, in many ways, it's easier. We are also a crypto-only exchange right now, so there's no fiat onboarding. And so the type of user who would come and use us has already entered the crypto ecosystem at some on-ramp at some point in time. And so that's helpful, but it doesn't sort of obviate the need to stay laser focused on the user experience, and that's something that we do every single day. I think in addition to that, there's also sort of this belief that, hey, we are so early in the adoption cycle as crypto as an industry, that as we continue to grow, some of this experience, some of that onboarding functionality will become more and more native to every user. And so we're interested in sort of helping create that incremental change that we think is sort of the slowly, and then all at once when it comes to onboarding. And our perspective is we're still in the slowly phase. So if we can stay focused on that user experience, make it very intuitive, soon enough we'll be at the all at once phase where logging into Enclave markets is the same as, checking, whatever app that you check on your iPhone. And basically it is sort of second nature for any user.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is what you guys should go after. You probably already know this better than me, but I feel like you guys should be going after that centralized exchange user base, because anecdotally, most decentralization maxis I know, regardless of what you tell them, they refuse to do any KYC process, and that might change, Ulta, if the SEC and regulators start coming hard after decentralized exchanges. But when I look at centralized exchanges, FX is just a much better version, or rather, it aspires to be a much better version, a much safer version of a centralized exchange. So, Phil, you just were saying you're sharing all the different ways that you guys plan on making it user friendly and making it easy to interface. I think you guys will be able to capture some of that market share.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and certainly that's something that we believe at Enclave. I would even sort of do a yes and point this conversation in a slightly different direction too. That as a tool, a trading platform that's targeting retail, you sort of heard our viewpoint and our worldview, but we also think that there's a really dedicated way to go after the institutional market right now, especially in the wake of Three Arrows, Genesis, FTX, and there's really a place for FX to make a strong institutional play. And any institution will tell you we cannot operate on your exchange, on your platform, without KYC. So they're almost the opposite of the decentralized maxi, whereas like we can't do business with you unless you're meeting every sort of compliance checkbox. And so there's also sort of that angle that we try to take and balance here at Enclave Markets.
Yeah, and I couldn't emphasize that more, Phil. Thank you for bringing that up. So no, I think that the risk for appetite or the base risk or appetite risk for different exchanges is different. And I'm not going to speak on behalf of other exchanges here, but I think that when we talk about enclave markets and especially addressing the institutional base of our users is definitely that super important for us. When we talk with our institutional users, as Phil just emphasized, it is critical for them to have a compliance strategy in place. So, I mean, speaking here as a GC, as also Chief Compliance Officer, of course, that this feedback is very helpful to myself in order to address how to onboard the institutional users and how to address their concerns when it comes to the regulatory clarity. So, as I said, everybody in this industry is trying to build. And I think that truly bear markets are always very important for us to continue emphasizing and to continue concentrating on what we would like to deliver for our users. I've been in this space long enough, since 2014, 2015. I forgot to mention that I previously jumped as an academic because I couldn't serve my clients if I didn't have a good understanding of this technology. My point is that there is so much potential. Let's try to build together, but we completely understand where the users are coming from and exactly when it comes to the custody of the funds, what they're looking forward in different models of exchanges.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of institutions are still on the sidelines for obvious reasons, as you guys have explained, and you're actually planning on trying to capture some of that market share, some of that unrealized market share. Am I correct in understanding?
Definitely.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, that's interesting, and it's something that I didn't think about.
Well,
okay.
Can I just jump in there,
Okay.
Noah, if you don't mind too? Because I think this is where like the idea of a product suite, and Drew might have some more color here to add as well, becomes really, really important. Not every product needs to be built for every user. And so, we've sort of thought about our customer personas as we've begun to plot out our product roadmap and then build, each step of the way. So Enclave Cross is our first product. Individual users are welcome to join. But at the end of the day, it's a more institutionally aligned product. That's why we're super, super excited about Enclave Spot that's coming at some point here in the near future. To create a experience that's a little bit more individuals oriented in terms of the consumer or the customer profile. But we sort of have the idea that you can do both, and you can build your products that sort of are designed to solve the problem of the specific customer persona that you're targeting. And you don't need one product to meet everybody's needs. You can sort of take more concentrated shots specifically to solve the problems of the customer profile that you're going after.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So not only are you guys helping move the needle of regulation in a positive direction, but you're also helping to promote that next critical catalyst, of mass adoption, which is institutional investors. You need institutions to buy in for this industry to go up to the next level. So love that. Thoughts on adding? So I feel like the saving grace for a lot of centralized exchanges, even for people that know how to use decentralized wallets and even people that are crypto experts, is their fiat to crypto gateways, on-ramps and off-ramps. Can you envision a fiat to crypto on and off-ramp built into Enclave sometime in the near future? Because I think that'd be huge.
I'll let Phil elaborate on this, but that is definitely on our roadmap later on. But yeah, Phil, can you please provide some more info?
Yeah, I would say two things. Agree with you that it would be huge. Agree that it's on the roadmap in the future, but maybe have a few qualms about the definition of near. So we're sort of follow the ethos of, we want to walk before we can run. And there's enough that we are trying to execute on just within Enclave Cross and soon to be Enclave Spot. And that's all crypto to crypto. Once you start thinking about on and off ramps for fiat, which are obviously critical, it introduces a whole new suite of issues. We're excited to tackle those issues, but want to do it at the right time, and certainly after we've proven that we can execute on our initial vision here. So it's definitely on the roadmap. No disagreement that it's a critical piece of infrastructure, especially for a company like Enclave Markets. But I wouldn't be looking for that in the near future.
Okay, so Alta, this is probably directed more towards you. And by the way, Phil, thank you for the clarity. I know that in crypto, you don't want to say something's coming soon, because if it doesn't come soon, then
when this, when that, right? And I'm the same way, so I get it.
Yeah, it's like when you guys said soon, and
exactly.
It's July of 2023, and it's still not here, and then they start to FUD the protocol, and I know how that goes.
So that's a great catch.
So Alta, I wanted to. This is maybe, or anyone that actually wants to answer this, but I feel like this is more for you. For industry players that don't want to wait for solutions like Enclave, and they know the potential, they see a potential, and they want to dive in, but they're still kind of iffy on the regulatory clarity. What do you think they should do in absence of it? And three-part question: what self-regulation is feasible, and what does that even mean? Go for it.
Yeah, that's a great. I'm not a big believer in self-regulation, to be honest. I mean, honestly, here we are. We have so many regulators here in the United States, and we're not trying, and we're not being able not to try. And we've been trying for a long time, but we're not being able to kind of figure out our regulatory framework. So, I mean, yeah, I have to be very honest. I just do not believe in SROs and self-regulatory. I think what is important for us right now, Noah, is not only to concentrate and work with other international regulators. I know many other legal minds, attorneys have concerns about MiCA or MiCA. I mean, people sort of pronounce that differently, and how that is going to approach the DeFi sort of criteria about compliance. But I think that when you talk about Singapore and how, as I said, MiCA in other European countries is addressing the regulatory questions, I think that this is a good lesson for our regulators here. Honestly, I think that especially speaking from an Enclave perspective, as I said, of course, when it comes to the strategy, to regulatory strategy or strategy on how we can onboard more international users, I am considering other offshore jurisdictions. But at the same time, in every offshore jurisdiction, I'm going to go through the process of compliance and applying for the needed licenses in those jurisdictions. I'm afraid that this may be the scenario during 2023 for many exchanges or many other crypto platforms, which is unfortunate. But at the same time, I mean, I still believe in this technology. As I said, I've been in this technology for many years now, and I just believe in the use cases that are being built out there. So, yeah, just to summarize, let's continue building together.
Yeah, well put. And I'm also super bullish on this tech. I don't think it's going anywhere. I just think we need to move forward wisely. From what I understand, MiCA was a bit more stablecoin focused. I kind of just skimmed through other summaries of MiCA way back, but I think they divided it in like 4 categories: crypto assets, utility tokens.
Yeah. No, yeah. You and I, we should do another spaces about MiCA.
Yeah, no, sorry, I tend to go off tangents.
No, truly is very important. And So yeah, it's true that they divided that into 4 spaces. I think they were a little bit more reluctant to address the NFTs and how the NFTs are going to be sort of regulated under that structure. But I have so much more to say about Micah. How much we have? I mean, we only have 4 minutes left, but I would love to address regulatory, especially how Micah addresses decentralized finance and NFTs in another Twitter space, because this is amazing.
Yeah, 100%. We will do another Twitter space on Micah. I'd love to dissect that with you. Rather have you dissect that for us, and then we ask questions. But guys, yeah, it's been a great space, and it's really exciting. I'm a big fan of just the whole Ava Labs team and anything that comes out of there. They just seem to be doing things better. And I'm not even shilling here. I literally have played around with so many different chains and so many different protocols, and I feel like enough anecdotal experience to say that the Ava Labs team and the Avalanche products, rather the products that come out of there, are just a bit easier to use, work a bit smoother, and seem a bit more secure. And that's just how I feel about it. Not financial advice, but Enclave team, anything that I've missed, anything that we haven't discussed? I know that you guys put together some questions. I put together some questions. I tried to just hit everything and cover all bases. But if there's anything that we haven't talked about yet and you guys want to close out with, go ahead and do so now.
I think, like, for followers here on Enclave Markets on our account, like, if you have some feedback and if you use our exchange, just please provide that feedback. It's super helpful for us to see from where the users are coming from and what sort of feedback they have for us. And I'm sure Phil and especially Drew should have some more feedback on this.
Yeah, I would echo that. I'd just say, there's no better way to check it out and learn about something than getting in and getting your hands dirty. And we'd love to have each and every one of you come check out Enclave Markets, be a part of this first wave of the adoption curve. We'd love to hear from you. We want to build something that you guys, our users, our clients, love to use. And so there's no better way to sort of get to that end result than having your voice be a part of the process. So super open to feedback, super open to your participation. Looking forward to the next steps here at Enclave Market, but then also, crypto markets overall. Really excited for the future.
Yeah, that makes two of us. Whale Coin Talk community, thank you. Alta, go ahead. Saw you on cue the mic there.
No, that makes 3 of us. I was about to say.
Yeah, that makes over almost 400 of us. I mean, I hope that everyone feels the same way about this industry. And the more time I spend in it, the more I see different paradigms of different industries. If they haven't shifted already, they will shift as a result of this tech. So yeah, I would love to have you guys on for future updates. I know that the spot market will be out sometime soon, and we don't know what soon is going to be, but I know that you guys have a lot coming in the pipeline over the next year and two. So anytime you want to come and share the podium again and describe the different things you're building and share updates with us, you're more than welcome to. Whale Coin Talk community, thank you for joining. This is the third Twitter space of today. You're listening to another episode of The Aquarium. My name is Noah. That was the Enclave Markets team. They're doing some amazing things over there at Enclave and Ava Labs, so definitely check them out. And remember, everything you hear on these broadcasts is meant for educational purposes only. Nothing is financial advice. Well, be safe out there, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.